See, living faith moves real people. Abraham was real. He had real faults. But James also puts faith into a real-world context for us in the very next few verses. It's a very real, for James, this is a very real-world situation in first century Palestine. If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, "Go in peace, be warmed and filled," without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? Now, we need to pause, because it'd be very easy for us to get derailed. Let's make it clear. This is not an argument for taking care of everyone everywhere for all time. That is not the argument that James is making. James is not talking about solving world hunger. There are way too many pastors that take this passage out of context and make some sort of meta-narrative argument about what all Christians should be doing in the world, and because there's still poverty, we're obviously all failures. That is not the argument that James is making, not even remotely. He's not talking about systemic issues. Note verse 15. He says, "A brother or sister." These are people within your orbit, in other words. This is somebody with whom you have a relationship. If they're lacking and you just say, "Oh, that's really too bad," well, thoughts and prayers. And you do nothing to help the need, James is asking the question, what good is that? He's taking away the excuse of, "Well, I didn't know. I didn't know what to do. It's too big of a problem for me." He's taking that excuse completely away. What he's really doing is he's questioning your presentations of yourself. You want to be well thought of without sacrificing anyone. That's not real faith, says James. That's a religion full of prop yourself up social media expression. And that's the context for the verse that we started with in verse 17. So also faith by itself is dead. Faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. It's important I don't skip lines when I read. Whew. But that's a dead cat kind of faith. There's no action. You're standing over the casket of your own faith saying, "Here it is, here's my faith. I know it doesn't move, I know it doesn't do anything, and it looks like it's decaying, but it's my faith." See, if someone you really know comes up to you with a real need, and this is one of the joys of doing ministry in this church, because you, church, do respond to real needs, you don't go, "Well, thoughts and prayers to you." You act. You do for them what you would hope that they would do for you if you were in that position. And we all know what that would be. Just put yourself into that position. What would I hope somebody would do for me in this position? And Jesus said the same thing then with the story of the sheep and the goats. In Matthew chapter 25, at the end of Matthew chapter 25, Jesus says in the final judgment, everyone is going to be separated into two groups, sheep and goats. The only difference between the sheep and the goats is what they did and did not do, said Keith Green. But it's there in the passage also. Now, okay, we have to hit the pause button again, because it's very easy for us, again, to get traveling down this track and to get just off kilter. I have heard some Christians saying, after hearing Jesus' words in Matthew chapter 25 or James's words here in this passage in chapter 2, "Oh my gosh, am I a Christian? Am I even a Christian? I mean, I don't do anything for the poor at all. I'm not involved. I mean, how do I sign up for those Compassion Kids again? I got to do that right now. I'll go see her. I promise. I'll see you later right after the service." Don't let my illustration stop you from doing that. But understand this: like, if you're saying I'd better do something because if I don't, then I'm not a real Christian, just stop. Stop where you're at right there and listen. It could be that all of that work with the poor, whatever, is nothing but shuddering. like the demons do. Because you fear what God could do for you, and you might not get into heaven if you don't, and so therefore, I better show that I have real faith. I got to go do works. I have to do fill in the blank, whatever it might be that you feel right now. I mean, do you see how quickly we can cross the wires on all of this? Like, we put cart in front of horse and say, okay, now I've got to do actions so that I can prove that I have faith, rather than saying, let my faith drive my actions. It's very, very different. So how do you avoid doing that? Well, this is why I pointed out that these people that he is talking about are people that are within your orbit. They're people that you have a relationship with. A living faith is just simply aware and interacting with the needs around you, with people around you, so that when an opportunity presents itself, your living faith just rises up and engages it. Nobody had to twist your arm. Nobody had to guilt you into it. Nobody had to offer a plea up. You just said, hey, like the Good Samaritan walking along that path and seeing the guy bloody in a ditch going, I can take care of that. And so we see how it works based on another example that James uses here in chapter 2 in verse 25 with Rahab. In the same way, was not also Rahab the prostitute a prostitute? She couldn't be a Christian. Come on. Justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out by another way. Oh, yes, Rahab the prostitute was justified by her works as she sent out the spies. See, Rahab was a Canaanite woman living in Jericho at the time of Joshua's conquest of the Promised Land. If you know the story, you know Jericho was the first city they crushed. God crushed. They just got to walk around it. So when the Israelite spies came from Joshua, she believed their God was the true God. And so she hid them at great risk to herself. See, she didn't have to go make a sacrifice. She just had to have courage. The opportunity presented itself and she didn't shrink back. She stepped out into it. So if you believe you're a sinner saved by grace, if Christ is your life, then you don't shrink back from the cost. You're willing to take a risk. And James says, if you see that happening, you shrink back. If you see that happening, you shrinking back from the risk, you may say that you believe, but you don't. See, the delineation between sheep and goats won't be whether or not we faithfully attended church or did quiet time or prayed consistently or have a bookshelf full of Christian authors. It will all be based on what we did or did not do when the opportunity to do something presented itself. You may recall that we looked at a church very much like what James is describing last year when we looked at Revelation. In Revelation chapter 3, we have the church at Sardis. He says this in verse 1, "And to the angel of the church in Sardis write, I know your works. You have the reputation of being alive, but you are dead." I know your works. Everybody around you thinks, wow, look at them. What a great church. They look so alive. I mean, they've got a pipe organ. Probably not. Right? They have the trappings of faith. They have stained glass and all of the 12 stations of the cross. They must be faithful people. And Jesus says, you look alive, but you are dead. Because all the things that you're doing to make yourself look alive aren't actually doing anything. They're just for show. So a dead faith may obey God for what you get out of it or what you may want to avoid. That's what a dead faith does. See, a dead faith can look at the holiness of God. It can see the holiness of God. A dead faith can see the wisdom of God, can see the greatness and the power of God. The demons all see that. But the one thing that the demons don't have, the one thing that the demons can't see, is the beauty of God. They don't have a love for God. A true faith, a living faith, wants to please God just because of who he is, not because of what you can get or avoid. You please God when you have a living faith because you love him, not because you want to avoid the potential punishments.